And if we consciously use music intentionally to set really beautiful, joyful connections, and we do it ritualistically, oh my God, we can actually knowingly set up our children to have sweet memories. And so I wrote these 14 songs that are for bedtime and for wake up time and for eating and for playtime. And my kids and all the campers that I've worked with as well, I know look back and they remember all these songs associated with a happy, positive childhood.
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Before we start the next conversation, I want to invite you to check out my amazing book, The Gift Inside, a powerful guide for healing your body, mind, and soul. Reclaim your strengths and awaken your true potential. Whether you are navigating heartbreak or simply seeking deeper fulfillment, this book offers the tools to turn your struggles into triumphs. It is time to unlock the gift within you. Available now on Amazon, or you can check it out on my website www.irinashehovtsov.com. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Craig Parks. He is the founder of Parenting Harmony and the creator of Parenting A to E from Stress to Smiles method, a heartfelt practical approach that helps overwhelmed parents turn chaos into connection and the everyday into something unforgettable. Drawing on years of experience as a parent, educator, and musician, Craig gives parents simple, soulful tools that build deep relationships, lasting memories, and more joy in the precious early years of childhood. Welcome, Craig. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Irina. It is really, really wonderful to be with you.
Thank you. So outside of my introduction of you, please share a bit about yourself, who you are in your own words.
You got it. I've been a camp director for over a quarter of a century. I've been a youth director. I've been a professional musician, including a lot of music with kids. And I also am a dad of two kids myself. I've got a 21-year-old son, and I've got a 10-year-old daughter. And the journeys of raising both of them have been really wonderful and interesting and challenging at times. My son is on the autism spectrum, and he got diagnosed very, very young. He got diagnosed at like 18 months. And so at a very young age, we started working with a lot of different experts, behavioralists and occupational therapists and speech therapists. So with my own experience of training a lot of people how to work with kids, being a dad of two of my own and working with a lot of specialists around special needs, I've learned a lot in my career. And I've had people have told me I've had a big impact on them in terms of how they've worked with children. And now what I want to do is kind of spread what I've learned and help other parents and help other children along the way. And, the one thing I realize about parenting is that most days of parenting are not the special days. Most days of parenting are not the we're going to Disneyland days. Most of parenting is the everyday slog. It's the having to wake them up, having to give them a bath, making sure they're washing their hands, making sure they're eating, bedtime, bath time. And for me, I always wanted to make sure with my own children that those moments were memorable, that those moments were sweet, because those are the moments that make up most of our lives as parents. And so I created the Parenting A to E method to help parents with their mindfulness, but also have a real easy, simple approach to their own parenting journey so they can enjoy it more and their kids can enjoy it, so that when their children look back on their childhood, they'll look back with really sweet, joyful memories with their own parents.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, it must have been a journey starting, when your kid got diagnosed and you had to kind of become hands-on and learn a lot of things that we don't get to learn when we are growing up unless we are faced with something like that. So awesome. How do you help people now?
Well, the way I help people now is I've come out with this course, Parenting A to E method, and really teaching this method. The A stands for affect, and what affect is essentially is how we use our body and how we use our voice, the affect of our body and our voice, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily give a lot of attention to, and it's something that when I learned how to work with my son before he was verbal, he didn't talk till well past the age of 2, and I didn't know if he would ever talk or not. He is verbal now, but in working with all these specialists, that's when I really became aware consciously of affect. I realized I actually had been doing it in my work with children all these years without understanding the actual context. And now I want to bring it to the forefront of parents' consciousness that the way we actually use our body and the way we use our voice has very, very big implications to our relationship and to how our children grow up. And so now I help parents by one, teaching them affect, and then also through music. Music is one of the most powerful memory makers that we have as human beings. And I remember a few years ago, I was thinking back to my first grade year. That was a lot of years ago. And I don't know how many of us remember the day to day of their first grade year, October 3rd, of that first grade year. I'm sure nobody remembers it, right? But the one thing I do remember about my first grade year was that Mrs. Andrino would end every day with the same song. And here I am, decades later, and I still remember that song. And and so one is music. Two, it was done with rituals, right? It was done ritualistically. And so and then when I look back on my own childhood, my dad, for example, he was a very, very hardworking man. He often worked 7 days a week, and I didn't have a lot of time with him. But one of my childhood memories that I do have with him is when he was home, he'd put on music all the time. And he would pop me up on his shoulders and we'd go dancing around the house. And so that's a really strong childhood memory. And I realized these childhood memories are often associated with music. And if we consciously use music intentionally to set really beautiful, joyful connections, and we do it ritualistically, oh my God, we can actually knowingly set up our children to have sweet memories. And so I wrote these 14 songs that are for bedtime and for wake up time and for eating and for playtime. And my kids and all the campers that I've worked with as well, I know look back and they remember all these songs associated with a happy, positive childhood.
I love it, and I think you're right. Music is so important because it taps into our emotions and frequency, and when you get to feel it internally, it becomes so much more memorable versus when somebody just says something, it kind of flies over your head. But music, I think, taps into your soul and can feel all those things internally, and then, yeah, remember it for many years to come. But it's wonderful. You still remember your teacher's name. I don't remember my teacher's name.
That's right. I mean, that's the power of music and the power of connection.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. How did you start out? Did you always wanted to be a musician? Did you knew how, like, what your career is gonna be?
It's funny because, I started learning piano when I was around 10 years old, and that was my first instrument, and I loved it. And I always loved music because my parents played a lot of music in the house. So I grew up listening to a ton of music. I have two older brothers who also were very into music, and they had their favorite bands and artists. And so from a very, very young age, I was listening to a ton of music and loved it. And when I got to learn piano when I was 10, I got to play the music of my favorite bands and my favorite artists. And then when I was 16 or 17, I picked up guitar and I fell madly in love with the guitar. And I I wanted to become a music major actually, and my parents were a little discouraging of it. They thought I couldn't really make a living in it, And so I minored in music, and it turned out I made music a majority of my life, anyways. But also working with kids was huge. When I was a day camp counselor when I was 19 years old, I could not believe that I was getting paid to do this job. My connection with the kids was so great. I mean, every day I'd wake up, I couldn't wait to get to camp and have these connections with these kids. So I realized at a pretty young age that I had a real gift with children. And just 4 years later, I became a camp director at the age of 23. I got to start a camp, and and then and then about 6 years later, I started another camp for another organization. So, and then that camp I ran for 24 years. So I've gotten to train a lot of people on how to work with kids and getting to see how they light up. And then, for me, certainly becoming a dad all those years ago too was like, oh, now I get to utilize all this information, experience, and love with my own children. But again, the journey was quite different. Just having a kid with special needs.
Yeah. What role does music and play have in helping kids connect?
Well, music, as often called, is a universal language, right? I mean, music is part of every culture all around the world. And music, I mean, you said it earlier, music helps us feel. It's not an intellectual exercise. It strikes right to the heart, right? And the one thing that I want parents to understand is that oftentimes they'll be like, well, I can't sing to my kids, or I have a lousy voice. And they have to understand that, like, our children are not music critics, and our voices are the voices of love. Our voices are the voices of connection and comfort for our own children. And so these songs that I wrote for my own kids and for campers as well are songs that are really, really easy melodies. They're not hard. And whoever buys my course, they'll get the recordings of the songs with my voice. But really what I want to encourage is that the intent is that parents will actually learn these easy songs and they'll sing the lullaby at night. They'll sing the wake up song in the morning. They'll sing these songs and use music as a device for their deepening their own connection with their own children.
Totally, totally. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
That's a great question. I think the most important trait is to instill a sense of safety, that they can be themselves and be loved. And the camps that I ran, the mission statement was always about having each individual feeling really celebrated for their uniqueness, but within the context of community and connection. And it sounds easier said than done, but because a lot of kids often are told to conform this way or that way, or to behave this way or that way. And sometimes their quirkiness will get shut down. And certainly, for me to be, I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of kids. I've worked with a lot of kids with special needs. And I think one of the reasons why my camps have been so successful is because, and my campers will tell me this, they feel like they can truly just be themselves and they're celebrated for it. And we set up a culture of kindness. So I think when people, and not just children, but really, I think any human who is in any environment where they feel like they don't have to guard themselves or hide themselves, but they could just be true to themselves, man, that's the best. And when they can be seen, heard, and understood and celebrated,
Yeah.
that's the best.
Yeah, totally. Can you share one example of how to allow for that to happen?
Yeah, I think that, if you're a parent and you think that, you want your kid to be a certain way. Let's say, you want your kid to be an athlete, but it turns out they're not very coordinated, or they don't have any interest in sports at all. Um, but but man, you put a crayon in their hand or a paintbrush in their hand, or you let them sing, or they're into the arts. Then instead of pushing them into sports because you want them to be an athlete, like approach them with curiosity, like find out who they are. And or if it was the reverse, let's say you want them to be an artist or a musician or whatever it is, expose them to what you expose them to, but always with a sense of curiosity. And if you sense that, oh, I've got a kid who's more like this, find out more about who they are. And so I think the more we can ask questions, the more we can validate their feelings, the more they're going to feel supported to be their truest selves.
Totally. Yeah, you're right. I think kind of oftentimes we feel as parents we want to give our kids the best opportunity and to enroll them in all kinds of activities, and sometimes like how much do you kind of enthusiasm will not come from a child, I guess, in the beginning because they don't know what's available, right? And then you show it to them, and sometimes we feel we gotta persevere. So at which point like do you stop and do you kind of let them, let's say, drop an activity if they decide this is not for them anymore? They did it for my son as a very good example. He used to do ballet dancing and he performed on stage and everything for 4 years. He started when he was 4. He was done when he was 8. He says, I'm done. I'm retired. I don't want to do this anymore. But you're so great at it. You're like amazing at it. People love you. You like, I don't know. And so
He's like
at which point
Barishnikov.
do you kind of stop and like, okay, it's not you anymore. Okay, we gotta move on.
Yeah. How old is your son now?
He's 10 now.
Uh-huh. And
10.
so what is he into now? Like what are his passions?
Video games.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's important though to continue to expose kids to different things too. Like even just getting them out in nature for a hike or a walk. And they're my daughter would often be really resistant to that. She's like, I don't want to hike or I don't want to, but then when we actually get out into nature, you just watch and her own natural curiosity, she'll start like looking at all these rocks or like, just digging in the dirt. Like it's really, really fascinating.
So you gotta kind of fish them out and expose them to different environments and
Oh,
see
you
how they
froze.
take
Am
it.
I still there?
Because first reaction is usually no, go away.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Ooh, that's a really great question. Um, I would say have the courage to be true to yourself. Don't say yes when you really mean no, and don't say no when you really mean yes. And if you could have the courage to stick to that and be true to yourself, I think life gets more interesting and better and more satisfying.
You're totally right. That's the best advice. Again, to be true to yourself. Awesome. What are some of your favorite low cost or screen free connection ideas?
So I'm so glad that you asked. So I just I just got done writing a book. It's going to be coming out next month called The Parks Party Central Parent Child Activity Book. It's going to have 25 screen free, very silly activities that parents can do with their children. And this all came about because at the beginning of the pandemic, my daughter, who was 5 at the time, her and I started a weekly live show on Facebook Live called Parks Party Central because everybody was at home and it was a variety show with activities and comedy and music and interactive games. And so we ended up doing 70 episodes of that show. And I went back and looked at the first 22 episodes and I took 25 activities that we did, and they're silly, they're fun, and they're all screen free, and they're so connecting. And so that book is actually going to be coming out next month, and if anybody wants to go get it, it's going to be found at parentingharmony.com. But there are all sorts of things that we could do. I just mentioned one. We can just go out for a hike. That would be a good one. Another thing that you could do is pop on music. Just have a dance party, and take turns with choosing songs. Let them choose a song. Play card games. There are all sorts of things. Cook together, have them pour in the different ingredients of a recipe. There are so many things that we could do with our kids, but one, we have to put our intention behind it. We have to get off our own phones, because we're addicted to our phones too. And I'm guilty of it too, right? I'm not sitting here being like, and it's hard, but when we prioritize and we realize what is the most important thing in our lives, it's our relationships. That's the most important thing. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And then in the book, it's just a lot of really silly things. Like this one silly thing that we do is we'll finish each other's sentences, and I'll be like, "Wow, it's how do you read my?" And then she'll be like, "Mind." I'm like, "Whoa, how do you do?" And it's like that, But then we'll come up with all sorts of silly endings to phrases, and just being just goofy and silly and being free to be creative. These are really, really important things, especially with young children.
You're right. Spontaneity and doing creative things, and I guess when we get into that, we get to remember how to be like kids, because as adults we often forget, we become too serious. And in creativity, in spontaneity, I think something aliveness is born.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
What is your superpower if you had to pick one?
Oh, my superpower. I would say it's presence. Like, I could really be present with people, and that's something that they've told me they appreciate about me. When when I'm with them, I'm like I'm focused in. I'm dialed in. I could be really, really present with people. So to me, and that's a real gift. Like, when anybody's really present with me, I'm like, oh, that's so nice. It feels so good. So I think presence, and that's something that I think any of us can certainly do, and work on too.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. That is important because, oftentimes, especially in the age of technology and 3-second attention spans, being present comes such a commodity nowadays that people are with you, they're listening, they're not like looking over your head or like scrolling on your phone or doing gazillion of other activities. So awesome, I love that. If someone is listening right now and feeling overwhelmed, what's one small step they can take right now?
Arena, you ask great questions. That's a really great question, and this is a very important one, because even in my parenting A to E course, what I start with parents is their well-being. And so if any parent out there, if you are feeling overwhelmed, it is really, really vital that you take care of your well-being, because we can't be the best parents that we can be when we ourselves are really struggling hard. And so I think it's important for any parents who are out there to realize that taking care of your well-being is not selfish. It's actually the best thing that you could do for your kids, because if you can get yourself out of overwhelm and out of anxiety, and get to a more peaceful and more calm state, we can actually be more present with our kids. We can access the joy that is available to us. So, and it doesn't mean spending, a whole day at the spa. Although if you could do that, that's awesome. Sometimes it might be just like stepping outside and just taking 3 deep breaths. It might be calling up your closest friend and saying, wow, I'm really struggling right now, and just being heard by somebody who cares about you. It might be, if you play an instrument, it might be sitting down at a piano or strumming a guitar for a couple minutes, or just listening to your favorite song. It could be in the form of many things, but many parents don't take even just 5 minutes to just take care of themselves. And so that, I think, is really critical and really crucial.
You're so right. As parents, we often forget to take care of ourselves. It's all about taking care of the kids. But we gotta charge our own battery before we can be a battery for other people.
Yeah, yeah. And it's super important, because when we're always overwhelmed, like, we're not going to be laughing with our children. And having laughter and having joy is not a small thing, and it's not an incidental thing. Having joyful connection is really, really important to a healthy relationship. And that's what my parenting A to E, from stress to smiles, and all the activities and all the songs are all about really delving into a deeply joyful connection, which is what I want all parents and what I want all children to get to have with their own parents.
Awesome. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Having joy is important, and when you are depleted, yeah, you're not gonna be smiling with your kids. You're gonna be like this instructor, drill sergeant.
Yeah, that doesn't work out well for anybody.
No, no. Any advice that you can share? I know that you are not a single parent, but any advice you can share for single parents from your experience?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this a lot, knowing that I was going to be on with you, and the last thing I want to be is presumptuous because I have not been in that situation. But what I have been in the situation is I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of kids in my career. I've been working with kids for over 30 years of all ages. And I've worked with a lot of kids who come from divorced families. And I'm sure what I'm about to say is going to be nothing new, but I know it is very, very difficult. But this is what I really think is the most important thing is whatever anger and justified or frustration, resentment you have towards your child's other parent, do not speak badly and do not tear down that other parent. I think so much of the pain that I've seen in children that I've worked with is when they feel so torn because of that dynamic. Do the best that you can to be cordial and kind, and whenever you have to interact with that other parent, or when you're talking about that other parent, and go talk to your friends and vent there, and let all your anger out. It's got to come out. Like, vent to your friends, or let it out. I'm not saying don't have those feelings. Have the feelings you're going to have, but don't have your children be the ones to feel the brunt of that, because that's their other parent. So that's what I would say.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Because it's all, I call it, it's not the relationship with kids, but it's your relationship with that other person, and it's not their fault. It's not the kid's fault, and we shouldn't be bringing that into the equation. We should be expressing in other means. So yeah, totally get that. Totally agree with you. And what is one non-negotiable thing for you in your day to maintain your sanity, to maintain your joy, to have that presence with your kids? So what is that thing for you?
Okay, this probably is not going to surprise you, given that I just talked about taking care of our well-being, as parents.
Yeah.
So,
How do you take care of your well-being?
So, so for me, a little over about 3 to 4 years ago, I started getting much more serious about my meditation practice. And so I now meditate every single day. I do not miss a day, like every morning. Like, I've not missed a day in like 4 years. And so that to me is a non-negotiable. I need to sit and breathe and meditate. And I think that has so many benefits that I think everybody who's in a relationship with me benefit, but my own relationship with myself, my own sense of calmness and peace, so that I can be present. And that to me is a non-negotiable. Like, I've got to meditate.
Totally. I'm totally agree with you. It's also one of my many tools. But yes, meditation is important. It's our connection. I call it the inner shower of the mind. You know how we take the shower in the morning to feel fresh? We gotta
I love it.
brainwash to feel good
Yes.
inside.
Yes, it is a beautiful shower, like a warm bath almost.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Well, I would just really want every parent there, and I myself, I'm always watching other parent coaches, and I'm doing so much reading, and I'm always trying to learn and grow as best as I can as a parent. I think that there's nothing more important to this world than raising kids who are raised with love and healthy connection. And I think the world would look radically different if every kid was raised with the best love possible. And so, for me, I'm trying to add to the voice of that world as well, because I just want all children to be able to grow up in a much more joyful, peaceful, and harmonious world. So if any parents are interested more in my work and the effect that I've had on all these families I've gotten to work with and all these children, please write to me at craigparks@parentingharmony.com. If you're interested in the screen-free activities, that book is going to be coming out, and it will include clips of the show. So each activity, you can click on it and you can see my daughter and I actually doing these silly activities. And then hopefully it'll inspire you to do these with your own children as well. And then if you really want to learn about affect and the power of affect, whether you have a special needs child or not, I really want to encourage you to check out my course. And anybody who's listening to this, if you write to me and you say that you heard this on this podcast, I will give you $200 off of the course. You just need to write to me at craigparks@parentingharmony.com, and I will give you that huge discount. It should make it very affordable, and I also am accessible. Like if you want some coaching, I'm happy to help you through this, because I really want parents and children to have beautiful, joyful relationships.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the work you are doing. It is important to raise children with love, and thank you for contributing to that movement and to make a world a better place. If people would like to connect with you and learn more about you, where would they go?
So they can write to me at craigparks@parentingharmony.com. They can go to parentingharmony.com to learn more uh, about what I do. And I'm also on Instagram and on TikTok. I do TikTok videos every day just to give advice and value. And I just want parents to be able to really enjoy their parenting journey. It is such a privilege and an honor to get to raise children, and I don't want any of us to miss it, because our kids grow up fast. I cannot believe my son is already 21 years old. I mean, it's crazy, and it goes by fast. And so that's why I want it with the course. It's like, let's make it memorable, like the mundane, the everyday. Let's make those things memorable, and we can. I'll share just one story. When my son was super young, every time the moon would come out and we'd see it in the sky, I would have huge affect, and I'd go crazy with my voice and crazy with my body, and together we'd be like, the moon, the moon, the moon, and it would be a full-on celebration. And I will tell you, just about like 6 months ago, I was hanging out with my boy, who's now 21 years old, and we were hanging out at night, and we looked up, and he saw the moon, and he went crazy, right? And it's like, that's like, what a simple thing to do, right? Look at the moon, go a little crazy, and now we've got this lifelong, joyful, beautiful memory. Every time my son is going to look at the moon, he's going to think about the beautiful, sweet, fun connection with his dad. And that's something that all of us can have, and that's what I want all of us to have, and that's why I put this course together. And Irina, thank you so much for having me on your podcast and letting me share my message. I hope that it's going to make a difference for a lot of families.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you for the work you are doing.
Thank you.